So, what we do here every week is to try to bring you something pertinent, something that's really helpful in helping you understand how cryptocurrency fits into the bigger picture of the world. The world that we grew up in and have kind of considered to be normal depended on traditional assets, traditional ways of doing things, was capitalistic in nature, and profit motive was part of everything. Luckily, cryptocurrency, even though it is seen as the place to be able to make the most amount of money, it gives you the ability to get rid of that profit motive in a very fundamental way. So before we go deeper into that, before we get Alex, our friend, to jump on and actually present all this stuff, we're going to do what we usually do: go around the room, say your name, and what's one thing that you see crypto doing that gives you hope. Okay. For me, my name is Sim, like a SIM card, or like Simba, or like Open SimSim or something. I don't know, whichever one works for you. The thing that really gives me hope for cryptocurrency is that it has the potential to take human corruption out of processes in a way that allows for reliable equanimity inside of global processes.
Okay, hi, so I'm Quentin. What gives me hope is just to see the mass adoption of it and seeing that the tools we trusted for years already are finally just being proved to be something reliable.
My name is Sam, and I'm very happy to see the fact that the debt-based system is going to be turned to shit pretty soon.
Nice. Hi, my name is Gary. Actually, I'm not very hopeful at all, because we have a great opportunity here, but human nature will corrupt it again, as we always did.
I 50% definitely agree with you.
Oh. Hi, my name is Zanara, and I'm hoping that it creates a more easier flow, and we don't have to queue for things, and yeah, it'll just be a brighter place.
And hopefully your bank doesn't block you from moving your own money around.
Yeah, which it's doing right now.
I'm Nila. Yeah, and I hope that everybody has the chance just to change in a quick way how we have the mindset about money. I think maybe the people are getting into something like the stream. It's like really sharing. Maybe I'm naive, but I'm still hoping that can happen.
We're going to learn about some of that stuff today. Thank you.
I'm Jonna. I guess I would say I feel like my hope would probably be that it gives more power back to us rather than to them, like the governments and whomever, because they can get fucked, but yeah.
Those whomevers.
My name is Gozian. My hope is self-responsibility.
Thank you.
Hi, my name's Duke. I'm hoping crypto brings us less corruption in the current state that we're living at the moment with fiat currency.
I'm Nicole. I guess I go with this, what he said. My brain is not working today.
Same thing as Gozian.
Yeah,
Perfect.
there we go.
Perfect.
Hi, I'm Michael, and my hope is to make a lot of money in crypto.
Somebody had to have that hope, so thank you, Michael.
My name is Marcel, same like Michael, but I also hope that more people can participate in a global market and a financial system.
Amazing, thank you.
My name's Mark, and to be able to break out of the box and make some decent money.
Thank you. Hey, my name's Dave. I think it just gives everybody an opportunity. Big and small, it just gives you the opportunity, so take it.
Beautiful, beautiful. And?
You don't need to skip it.
Yeah, already. Yeah, I'm Alex, and I'm passionate about cryptos because I see it as an opportunity for better systems, as a foundation to a new, more equal Earth where we have more freedom and sovereignty. That's what we'll cover also today.
So, Alex, can you tell us more about how that works?
Yeah. So, hi, I'm Alex. Well, first I was meant to come with Yono, but who's been organizing with me a mastermind that I'll talk about. He's a little bit sick, so he stayed home. And Michael Healy, an amazing guy who does tokens, is meant to come too, but we'll see. That's the Bali flow. So what we're putting together is a mastermind called the Light Leaders Mastermind. And the idea there is to gather people who are aware of maybe things that don't work that well in the current system, who are generally pretty passionate about raising the consciousness of the planet in a way that maybe a lot of people who see more than what we see in the physical. That's the kind of people we attract there. And also who are very solution driven, who are passionate about creating the newest, more passionate about creating the new than focusing too much on the old and what's wrong with it. And so personally, I'm not super savvy on the tech of cryptos. And I want this to be more a discussion than a presentation in a way, because that's the whole idea of creating masterminds, is that together we have way more knowledge than each single individual. So, about me, the past 4 or 5 years, I've been quite deep into a spiritual journey, awakening, or personal growth journey, and it made me really passionate about creating a world where people have more freedom and sovereignty to start with, and also can discover how wonderful and wide life is. And I got in. It's interesting because cryptos in the, let's say, conscious community, which is how I got into it. At first, a lot of people that don't really understand what's the connection. The view on cryptos is like it's like more nerds behind a computer, doing some code, trying to make money. And I feel like at the moment I'm really bridging this community with cryptos in the way that a lot of people can see in the current context how important it is to decentralize more resources and power, and that blockchain has been really good at doing it. So I've been doing workshops, and most of the people would have like 50, almost all women, and yoga teachers, and who are like, can see a bit the correlation. And after a 2 hours workshop, they could become quite passionate about this as a tool to create a world we want to live in, that then also looks like a lot of time in nature, a lot of time taking care of ourselves, being in community and in person. So in that regards, I personally saw that in the current time and place, looking to blockchain and being discerning around what project we can look at and want to support is probably where I could personally have the most impact in manifesting that vision of the new Earth, where we're connected to nature, where we're kind to each other, where we can also to animals, and like something you see emerge quite a bit in Bali. I come from Paris, and the vibe is pretty different. I have that joke that in Ubud, where I live, I sit in a cafe and I look at the person next to me and I smile and they smile back and we can start a conversation. And then when I came back to Paris, I sit in a cafe, look at the person next to me and they smile and they're like, "Who's that creep? What does he want?" It's called the Light Leaders Mastermind, and the idea behind is to really empower the conscious community. And we do that through information. So you learn from top leaders in the industry on each of these topics. So one is tokens. We'll dive into each. Decentralized organizations, content creation and social media. And there's also one around networks. And actually, without being highly technical, a lot of people, if we understand that, we can come together and have a lot of power, really. And the idea is that we can stop being so dependent on centralized controlled entities and recreate those systems in a way that's efficient and more fair together. And so I think it's important in that regard that a lot of people who are resourceful and learn quickly without becoming tech nerds can really understand the power, especially of blockchain, cryptos, and some other decentralized technologies. That's why we come together for that. So I'll start diving into why decentralized tech, and I'm super happy to make it more interactive. So if you have questions, if you have things you feel like you could add, things to challenge around it, I'm more than happy for you to raise your hand and speak.
What the hell is decentralized? Everybody keeps saying decentralized, decentralized. I don't even know what decentralized means.
Yeah, to me it's a spectrum, right? It's more decentralized, less decentralized. So, for example, if you look at a crypto, if you look at the top 1% of, well, if you look, okay, if you look at power, for example, and you take fiat currencies, a small group of people will make the decision. Then if you look at Ethereum and the EIP process, it's going to be way more people involved. So it's more decentralized in a way. But then it's still a spectrum. Like, for example, a referendum is super decentralized, but a good governance, you probably want to have some leaders who know what they're doing, have more weight in the votes. So for me, I don't really have a specific answer, but it's more a spectrum where we go from one individual, a group of individuals making decisions and receiving the resources to have it more spread.
Yeah, for me, it's just been that, like you said, the world that we come from, centralization was the basis of it. That internet's controlled by companies, Google's and Facebook's, very specific companies that run the whole system. Money is run by central banks. Governments run whole countries. So the very few get to make decisions for everyone, and everyone almost gets no say in it. Decentralization on that spectrum allows for us to participate in a way that more and more people get to be part of the decision making, and their decisions actually matter using undeniable mathematics that will guarantee their decisions mattering. And that's
the decision making and the benefits.
Yeah, love that. Sorry, continue.
So if we can go to the first slide. The next one, yeah. Well, first, I think here people would agree that tech is important and will take an important place in the future. When you look into what I'd call conscious community, then we can define that more. But basically, some people see tech as a problem in itself, like it's perverted society, it creates control, and want to. And to them, the new us is almost going back to before it was, when there was more of that tech. And then there's another view, and probably a million of views in between, but where tech can be used for good. It's just been kind of weaponized until now a lot by more controlling forces, but we're actually still grateful that we can, broadcast this to the other part of the world, that I can call my mom back in France, and a lot of things. So this discussion more for people who see how tech is also useful and make our lives better, and that's not going anywhere. Now, to me, the main problem with a lot of the tech right now is that centralization. So, yeah, you talked about more. You talked about more people having benefits and decisions. We'll talk about social media, but if you talk about social media, imagine Facebook, where the users would get some of the value and would get some of the governance power also in it. When how it works at the moment is when you have a project or a government or a big company, the money, the power, and the resources, they're very concentrated. We can see a lot of loss of individual sovereignty at the moment. So Bitcoin was tackling sovereignty at the money level, and then you can look at freedom being threatened, freedom of speech, again on those big social media platforms, and even freedom of what you put in your body, of traveling. So there's a lot of individual freedoms at the moment threatened, and a big one is freedom of speech through censorship. So why we want decentralization is we want that money to flow to more people, the decision making to flow to more people, especially to the people who use the systems. We want to claim back our sovereignty on our money, even on our food, on our bodies, and of freedom of speech. So that's why decentralization. I mean, these are values that I think a lot of people would align with, and that's been threatened at the moment. Would you agree with that?
Yes.
Yeah. So we come together and we embrace that beautiful technology of blockchain, of cryptos. We'll talk about holochain also, on how it's really in the world of today. And if you see like some power dynamics there, to me, it's I know Sim, you have a little bit more of a pessimistic view compared to mine on the future. Like, to me, I can see how if we embrace those technologies, they can be more efficient and they can overall just be the new way. And the transition might not be very smooth, but I believe it's going to be the case. And here we can see a little bit why it works so well. Yeah.
Transitions are usually not very smooth. That's why I don't want to seem like I'm pessimistic about things, but like when you break down an old system and a new system gets set up, that transition between the two historically has never gone smoothly. Revolutions require blood. So, but other than that, everything's going to be fine.
I don't necessarily think it's going to be smooth, and maybe, I mean, we'll be on I'll have you on the podcast and we can, but I can see a future, and I don't know if it's 5 years from now, 10 years from now, but where this kind of communities can live, where we have decentralized system, where we're closer to the land, and these communities that I know you're passionate about creating, where we can also be in the open, and we don't have to hide somewhere because we're tracked down. Yeah. So hot token. So for the part on token, there was meant to be Michael, and just sent me a message, but I don't know if he's coming. So maybe I'll keep it for a little bit later in case he comes, and we can go to the next slide. Yeah. So, well, let me do a little bit on the token, actually, if you can come back, and if when he comes, we can have the longer discussion then. So in the mastermind, we'll have Michael Healy from UNIT, that's mainly about tokenization of the economy. We'll have Nick from Seeds. They have created a great system of governance with a constitution, with reputation scores on how you can build systems that are decentralized in their governance, but still efficient. We'll have Faiz Nazarali. So he's creating something called High Vibe Networks, like a social media and also personal growth platform where you get rewarded for great content creation, but also as a user for taking the right actions, like doing your meditation. And the fourth one will be Santiago Rafael talks about holochain, which is described as an evolution of blockchain that is more peer-to-peer rather than having a central blockchain. And so on the part on tokens, well, so that's Michael's vision. And when he told me about it, we did a podcast together, we had a few meetings, I was like, whoa, I can see it. And Michael's a guy who's been building apps since he's 12 and has been working on that project since 2016. In 2011, he was helping WikiLeaks get funding in Bitcoins after PayPal was shut down. So, it's like cool guy. And yeah, basically with cryptos, the idea is to remove the middleman, to remove the bank. And that's what happens with, for example, Bitcoin. And that's what's going to happen with so many businesses, personal brands, apps, yeah, like so many things. For example, Sim, for a meeting like this, like, can I ask you, what's your main revenue?
You mean like revenue for
How do you
this
make money?
Oh, I make money by...
You do consulting?
Okay, so I make money by helping people get into crypto first, then I help them manage their portfolios, then I help them take their investments and invest them into multiple revenue streams, and then help them build tax structures around that to make sure that they can minimize their tax liability. and then about 6 other ways.
So to me, in 2 years, or maybe in 2 weeks, if you want to, but in 2 years would become more obvious. The same as at some point, you know, if you're a shop, you would you need to be on, let's say, Google Maps, so people can find you and there's reviews. But maybe 10 years ago, you didn't have to. And here's the same. There's going to be an early adopter curve, but in your case, maybe in a month, you want to have your own token, the SIM token. And the people who your expertise, maybe, so they pay you, part of this revenue would go in a treasury that keeps growing. And so if I see, wow, what SIM is doing is amazing, well, it's like crowdfunding. I can bet on you, I can own a little bit of the thing you're building because I believe in what you're building, if you want people to do that. So that's something that's going to happen for like individual. It's going to happen even for, there's a new cool restaurant and people want to support. And
yeah, so to that effect, we are working on how to tokenize real estate across Bali and then allow people to be able to access it who may not have had the means to be able to access real estate investment in the past. So it is literally creating an economy where every single thing in the world, from events to people to companies to real estate, cars, whatever you want to be able to own, if you want to own a little tiny piece of it, you'll be able to own it using a token.
That's amazing. So you democratize those investments to people who have less money. Yeah, that's super cool. And yeah, so really what we see is three things with the tokenization of the economy.
Joe is here. You said Joe is here. We can also talk about unit.
Joe?
The Joe Rotundi, I think. Oh, he's on the call. Yeah, he's on the.
Okay.
He's on the Zoom.
Okay. Well, I don't know him, but yeah, if there's anyone, including in Zoom, that wants to share on this, that's great.
He's from unit.
Ah, okay.
Joe, if you want to give us a little input there, please do. Joe?
You can go on, Joe.
I'm going to put the sound through TV, I think.
Is he talking now?
No, and then there's going to be feedback if you put it through the TV.
Hi, can you hear me? Hey, this is Joe.
We can hear you, Joe. We can talk.
Hey, Alex, I haven't met you yet either, but I am on the unit core team as well. So if you wanted to bounce some ideas around, I can help with that.
Amazing, Joe. Go for it.
Yeah. So unit, or sort of the token economy we're talking about. As Alex and Sim were just saying, you can tokenize anything. You can tokenize yourself, an idea, an industry, a brand, whatever it is. And the key sort of thing with most crypto assets is that, basically if no one wants Bitcoin tomorrow, Ethereum, whatever it is, they can fall down to zero, right? So just for whatever reason, the demand is zero, it'll fall to zero. But if you have a treasury, let's say there's Sim token or Alex token or Joe token, and you buy, let's say there's 100,000 Sim tokens, you can have, and Sim decides to sell like 30% of them. So now you got 30% of the tokens out there, 30,000 tokens. Let's say for the sake of math, he sells them for $1 each of Bitcoin. So now there's $1 of Bitcoin, $30,000 of Bitcoin, and 100,000 token treasury for Sim's token. So, but he retains 70,000 of them. So now all of us can buy a stake in Sim's token, but we're using the reserve assets of the blockchain era, not gold because it has to be stored in a particular place. But with Bitcoin, Ethereum, Polkadot, Cardano, BNB, and then of course the unit token is the home token of the whole thing. So we're raising money right now to back 100,000 unit tokens, but once that's funded, the 100,000 unit tokens can be used as collateral as well to buy other tokens. So it's so once we raise the money for the unit token, there's $150 million each for 50 different industry tokens, so like fitness token, yoga token, sports token, and then city tokens, 50 different city tokens like Bali token, Shanghai token, New York token. So the idea is to take all the world's value, and instead of just having these speculative assets that limited supply give them their value, demand and limited supply, instead you can kind of have something backing it. So if there's like $30,000 of Bitcoin in the SIM token treasury, you can say, okay, there's $30,000 of base value. So it'll never fall. If no one wants SIM token, if no one wants it for whatever reason, the demand falls, it'll fall to 30 cents a piece. So it really de-risks it for the investor. And it allows, as Alex was saying, like, what's your revenue stream, SIM? Well, however you're making it, the money that you make, if you put it into the treasury, whoever owns SIM token can also have a stake in your success. And it's very transparent. It's not you put it in a bank and then we can't see it. And hopefully, you'll burn some of the tokens like they do with the BNB token. Instead, we can get our portion out of the treasury in proportion to the amount of the token that we hold. So maybe that's I don't know exactly, Alex, where you wanted to go with it, but maybe I'm here to bounce stuff off if you want to.
So what we're saying is we're launching SIM token pretty soon. It's going to be backed by a SIM, and where you can invest in it and as very soon. That's a bit of a joke, but just to shorten up. I know that one bombed. That was the worst joke ever. Think about this. Like right now, everybody's worried about what is backing these cryptos, right? It's just networks and people using them, and technically the trust that we put behind them. And sure, it's Metcalfe's law and all that stuff, but tokens and tokenization allows something solid or something actually valued in society to be backing the token itself. It could be somebody's work, it could be real estate, it could be a project. It's something that actually carries value, that we all agree carries value, that you can use to back it. So it kind of realizes the idea of cryptocurrency in a way where it's much more likely for people to be reticent to adopt it. Does that kind of make sense, Joe? Wait. So we're doing things a little different now. So.
My question is like, what is the legal structure, the legal difficulty to do it, and transparency? Because like there are a million projects, we hear this kind of projects also more and more. And when you see there's not even transparency for stable coins, how can people expect transparency for something like that? So talking about real estate for one.
First of all, expect to be scammed when somebody gives you this project. That's the truth of cryptocurrency right now, because it's more likely that a scammer is going to come up with it than somebody with good intentions is going to come up with it. Secondly, what is going to guarantee the actual connection behind it? Depending on the regulatory structure in the country. That's why we started with real estate, because real estate has securities regulations in many different countries that when you take an entity that owns real estate legally, and then you securitize that, basically break it up into little chunks and sell each one of the shares, that whole process is already within the regulatory structure. So once you follow that and you do your due diligence to make sure that that company that's pitching you the tokens has regulatory authority and ownership of the assets, then you can invest in it. Right? So to answer your question, yeah, you have to really do your due diligence on that, or you at least have to know the team and know that they're doing good work. There might not be regulatory structures around it, but you know that you trust the work that team is doing, because TBH, more than 60% of them are going to take your money and leave.
Yeah, but same as trust. I don't know, like trusts. I mean, like trust often, I don't know, trust is often not really backed by much. So I don't know, like we trust a lot of people, but in the end, they really bring what they promise. Even the ones we trust, I don't think so. I mean, it's very, I think it's very hard. Like, I mean, in Indonesia, the legal structure is not that transparent. You need a good audit system. I don't know. I mean, I love the idea. And I have another question. I mean, I don't know some of the answer, but like, what is also the difference in that case between tokenizing it and shares?
Yeah. So I'll let Joe answer that one first.
Yeah, so it's interesting, you know, like in the as you talk about real estate, something that's not on in the digital world, that is in the regulatory structure of whatever country. But the cool thing is, when you introduce a treasury, it's quite a subtle change, but it actually removes the need to rely on trust, because now you can see what's in the treasury. Everybody can see everything that's there. Everyone can see exactly how much they own, all the transactions. The bank, I mean, the treasury is perfectly transparent, and it's not just reported every quarter like a public company or something, not dependent on any government accounting structures or any country accounting. So even with a real estate project, like you know, you can see how much of my income from a rental property I have, let's say, I'm putting into the treasury. And so you can kind of see like how much is in the treasury, how much was there last week, last month, last quarter, and kind of back into the income. So it's kind of remaking the entire global accounting system and making it very sleek and useful. So you can kind of have a price to treasury ratio, price to treasury growth ratio, and you have millions and millions of tokens. So as the value goes into the treasury, it's outside of the regulatory structure of a country. So you don't have the deed of the traditional sort of real estate, but you have access to the income, and the token really represents that value that the real estate is producing. And so it doesn't have to be traditional assets you can trade. It could be real estate, it could be a song, it could be an idea. As we were talking about personal tokens, we already have personal tokens, by the way. I have Joe token, it exists. And you know, I'm sure everyone will have their own tokens at some point, hopefully soon. And I could use my Joe token to buy Alex token or Sim token, or you know, whatever you're creating. And so we all kind of can share in each other's success because we can all share each other's tokens. It's kind of like having a voting system traditionally, but it's not a win-lose like democracy. Instead, everyone kind of takes a stake in each other and therefore looks out for each other, because we all become salespeople for each other's projects. And yeah, so I really think we're solving that problem of you know, trust, lack of transparency, and needing to depend on legacy government systems for enforcement of those property rights. It's really it's a brand and your reputation, and showing how much commitment you're giving to that treasury, putting the value in there, both from what you're earning, you know, the thing that's tokenized, and also the trading fees on the platform. 0.5% goes into the SIM token treasury when I buy SIM token with the liquidity pool of USDU and SIM, for example. I mean, there's more to it, but that's kind of the basic concept.
So just to have some examples, do we know any existing tokens that we could look at that are maybe more popular that somebody could take as an example?
Well, so unit.network it's going live soon, but we're able, I mean, parts of it are live. So you kind of have like as I said, we can all create our own tokens. It's not tradable yet. So once the Joe token, it's available, but like within a couple of days, you'd be able to deposit. I'm not selling my token, I'm just giving you an example. You'd be able to deposit, as I said, the reserve assets are not, it's not like, you know, oil or gold, it's Bitcoin, Ethereum, Polkadot, BNB, and Cardano. And those, since they're limited supply tokens that they're already valuable, it actually creates a whole new wave of demand for those assets, because they're used as reserve, like gold used to back the dollar. Well, Bitcoin can back, you know, SIM token. And Bali token, whole big industries and cities. Now, if you'll accept Bali token as a city token into the SIM token treasury for your business. So yeah, and we have a bunch of case studies. Like there's the Niani project. I think one of the 5 we're building in that unit. So that's being tokenized with the Morabito Art Village. There's a whole bunch of different smaller ones that are used as case studies, but I really think just a few case studies are going to be needed to really demonstrate the power of it, and people use them pretty quickly. But I mean, it's super close to being live, so we'll all be able to tokenize ourselves in a relatively, like, not just like, oh, fly by night, this is a joke, a SIM token, why would I want that? Because the treasury concept, you can start with no brand at all. You know, you don't have to be like a famous celebrity musician or an athlete, but you know, you can build a community around let's say SIM token. So SIM token, the base token value would be like 30 cents in our previous example. And then it would trade around. You're suddenly public. And the first thing you do is go public. You have 6.5 billion people that can buy your token. So your earnings won't be valued like a stock. It'll be valued like 6.5 billion people, maybe 600 times earnings. And then the highest value use of SIM token would be to buy services from you, because you are, you need to pay like maybe a 10% premium, like a buyback, for people to be able to, to want to give up this valuable token that they want to have a stake in you in order to buy services. So it really creates a network effect, a community around you and anything you tokenize. So it's like little governments where the value is in the center, is sort of the core that keeps everyone together. So there's lots of examples that are coming once the thing is live, but yeah, it's pretty cool. We're starting at the top, the unit token, and then the big industry and city tokens, and then all the other agency tokens and personal tokens and all kinds of things just kind of percolate from that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, makes perfect sense. Just what I heard from it is, someone could potentially, let's say, the token could be backed by the amount of money they're earning, the amount of real estate they have, the amount of Bitcoin, the amount of crypto, and everything that the person has. And as investment comes in, the value of that token would go up. And as the assets backing it in the treasury go up, that would also increase the value of the token itself. So it's like tokenizing everything, basically.
Exactly, and the treasury really is what it seems like a very narrow drill going into the ground, but it unlocks massive amounts of value in a lot of ways that we're just kind of discovering as digging into it. It's not just the speculative value is pretty much what every token has to this point. And so you can kind of turn up your nose at a SIM token at first, but you're like, wait, it's backed by real things, and people have they can get their value out of the treasury if everything goes sour. So it really actually limits the volatility that's famous in the crypto market too, because you have a real basis for valuation. Oh, is it trading below that? It's undervalued, I'll buy it. But trading above that, I'll sell. Doesn't get rid of the volatility, but it kind of makes it more like a stock. I think over time, and helps the crypto market mature. I might be a little myopic in this, but I do believe it does solve a lot of the problems of the general global crypto market. So it's pretty exciting.
Yeah, just a closing thought on that. Having a broader viewpoint on what's going on right now. Think about this. Remember when the internet came out? It was email. It was @. People used to be like, "Is this internet the A thing with the circle around it?" Right? And we could not understand how the internet was going to change. It was like, okay, you connect a bunch of computers together, you let me send some messages. That's a basic technology. And we could not fathom the infinite variety of technologies and use cases and value that would be added to society just because of that little A with the circle around it, right? So that's where we are with tokenization and cryptocurrencies and blockchain today. We just turned the computers on 10 years ago, and we're just starting to even understand what tokenization is. So to us, it seems like, okay, well, I guess you tokenize it. Why wouldn't I just make it shares? Why wouldn't I still just use the old system? Kind of like people said, instead of sending email, why wouldn't I still send a telegraph? I don't know. Or I want to just call the person. It's quicker for me to call the person. But once you start to adopt these technologies, and once you start to really build layers and layers on top of these technologies, in 10 years, in 20 years, it will turn into stuff that none of us can fathom right now. That's why it sounds myopic right now, but just understanding, participating, and starting to be part of this world will lend itself to you being one of the forefathers who was there in the internet back in the MS-DOS days. That's how I look at this thing.
Yeah, and I know you follow and talk about Raoul Paul significant amount. I've heard him talking about community tokens being the future, and there's only a few platforms you can invest in, like little tiny ones. So we'll look back in 5 years and community tokens will be the big thing. Well, be interested to see as Unit really takes off if he becomes an evangelist along with the rest of the market. Anyways, I'm sure we'll have other things to talk about, so go ahead.
Yeah, cool. thanks Joe, and thanks Sim. And I'm happy there was someone from UNIT, because that's the vision of UNIT that we fully embrace with the Light Leaders Mastermind. I mean, of course, we'll have discussions around it, but I feel that this is super exciting. And so as we come together in that mastermind, there is a session with Michael Healy from UNIT where we'll have a little presentation and Q&A, and then breakout rooms where we mastermind together. And the idea is, you don't have to do it right now, but the idea is that a lot of us who are going to join this, we have some kind of business or creation, and that can be tokenized. And so through that, we will, for the ones who want, create our token. The idea is to be...
Manager was in the building.
Hmm?
Michael Healy has arrived.
Oh!
Perfect, right on the topic of tokens.
Yeah, well, on the tokens. And so, thank you, Michael. I was sharing how much I was drawn by your vision and was seeing it, and we have Joe also sharing. And so the vision here, Light Leaders, we've already just started the token. We are still in the process of doing the tokenomics, but with that group, the idea is for people who are an entrepreneur, people who are a creator, will be like, hey, that's how you could do if you want to do your token. And also, we've created the Light Leaders token. So if you want to wait a month or two, see how it goes, what are best practices, there will be other projects that you can look at. And then the people who create their token, as Joe was talking about, we can interconnect our successes together. So for example, I'm about to do Tantra teacher training with Tantricence. And there's a guy on Discord who's called Modestas, who I'll help and talk with, so they create their Tantricence token, because they already have a business model, they have revenue, they have a brand, and I want to have a bit of their token personally, because I really believe in that vision. And if they believe in the Light Leaders vision, they can have some of the Light Leaders token that's going to be backed with the some of the revenues of the events we make, like of the mastermind we're building, and probably more things in the future. So same with, I'm part of a men's group and want to go global and become the biggest men's group and have festivals. And I'm like, I believe in your vision, so I also want that men's group token. And so you can see here how we're all interconnecting our businesses. So usually when I say, at least when I present it to my friends in Ubud who build conscious community, healers, Tantra teachers, like it's where first everyone who's a client, a customer, becomes a micro investor and is vested in you doing well. So if you're a healer, you change my life. I'm not just saying, hey, go to see that healer, it changed my life. If that guy becomes like big, I'll benefit from it. So that's one thing on the profit sharing. The second thing is works as crowdfunding. So with the Light Leaders, we'll also be like, look, that's our business model, that's our plan. Who wants to invest in us? And like this, we can have more. We can have more value, more resources through crowdfunding. And the one I talked about, which is interconnecting our businesses. So I think just this is going to be so powerful when we do the mastermind, to have some people very early adopter who will be like, yeah, I'll create my token too, and we do that together. Some who will see, and maybe they'll do it in a few months. But yeah, I'm super excited about that. Do you want to add something?
Yeah,
Michael?
thanks so much. So yeah, a bit of my background. So I'm half Singaporean, half British. Been building tech companies the past 12 years, ran one of the popular social networks in the UK, sold a video conferencing app like Zoom with a few million users. Been in the crypto space since 2010. So I wrote the Android app for WikiLeaks, and the government froze. They froze our PayPal, they froze our Visa, MasterCard, bank accounts, but they couldn't freeze our Bitcoin. So basically kept the organization running. And yeah, I'm super passionate about what Adam is doing, and how this space can really change the world. And how do we believe it's going to change the world? People looked at the internet 1995 and they saw, okay, these are a bunch of geeks, these are a bunch of nerds. Like, why should I care about the internet? And it really transformed information. Now if you wanted to learn about the capital of Zimbabwe, you go onto Wikipedia, you type it on the internet, and you have it in the click of your fingers. Before you'd have to go to a library, you have to go to an encyclopedia. and the internet really transformed, democratized access to information. And then, the mobile phone, when the iPhone came out in 2008, people were like, okay, those guys are going to wait outside an Apple store overnight, pay $1,000 for a phone, but that's not me. And you look at it 10 years now, even in a small village, they have a smartphone. So, crypto in its current state, we're a bunch of people who care or believe in the future of crypto, but, we're confident that this decade, every single person, whether it's a Warong, whether it's, a person in a small village in Africa or in India or in, rural China, rural Indonesia, is going to hold digital tokens. And taking it a step further, as what Alex was mentioning earlier, they're going to create their own token. And like, okay, why would they create their own token? Is it going to be like, an altcoin? People think it's going to pump up and it's going to dump, and it's heavily risky, heavily speculative. So we basically think, crypto will follow the same theme that the internet and the mobile phone has followed. So when internet companies started, everyone used to say, it's an internet company, it doesn't need to make money, it's special. I run a retail store, and I'm like, Alex runs an e-commerce website, but he's spending money on every single sale he makes. Like, how does that work? How's he funding this? Oh, he's got venture capitalists, and they believe in the future of the internet. It's going to change the world, but he's wasting all this investor money. But then, the dot-com bubble happened. Before the dot-com bubble, so 2001, everybody invested in internet companies, and a lot got badly burned. And then 2001, everyone said, the internet's a scam, it's dead. Let's go move to real estate or finance, forget about the internet. And then, 10 years beyond, Facebook launches in 2004, one of the biggest companies of all. YouTube launched in 2005. Google figured out how to make money with ads 2003. And the internet, grew into some of the biggest companies in the world. So it initially, was entirely driven, and then it built, real products and services, built underlying value. Same with the App Store. I was one of the first app developers in 2008 when the iPhone came out, 2009 when the App Store was launched. And at the beginning, apps didn't make money. Instagram got bought for $1 billion. And everyone was like, okay, this app is 18 months old. Why is Facebook wasting $1 billion on a photo sharing app with 30 million users? It just doesn't make sense. And it turned out to be one of the biggest, best acquisitions of all time. Now it's got, hundreds of millions of users. It's worth, tens of billions or hundreds of billions of dollars. It's arguably more valuable than Facebook itself. So Facebook as a group, its most valuable asset is probably Instagram. So people underestimated, the power of mobile, the power of apps, and now it's, running the world. So the cool thing about crypto is we're still at this phase where we believe, it's largely speculative. People look at coins and they go, it doesn't need a business model. It doesn't need a product or service. It doesn't need underlying value to be created. You can look at CoinMarketCap and you're like, okay, what am I going to buy or use today? And it's really hard to see, okay, like, fair enough, my friend told me to invest in this coin or token, but like, what can I actually use? Which are actually creating real products or services, solving my problems? It's just very early in the space. But we think we're confident that it's going to move to a state where, if you look at, the Light Leaders token, it's got a bunch of products and services. You look at the Sanctuary token, it's got a beautiful place that you can use it to stay. And the bigger question is, how do you back up the value of, the Light Leaders token? How do you back up the value of the Sanctuary token, or Sims token or Michael token? How do you back it up? So we think that it's no different to how, internet companies are valued, businesses are valued. It's the underlying assets plus some flow of profit.
And so, Michael, just so you know, Joe also explained for quite a bit.
All right, okay, awesome.
The vision.
I hope it wasn't too fast.
No, because I know he talked about the treasury also,
cool.
So I feel that's where you were going.
Yeah, okay, so I'll pass it back to you.
Unless it wasn't clear, I don't know. Yeah,
that's good.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, on the token, actually, I mean, the idea of masterminding also, you can see how, for example, you're here and you're such an expert, and then we talked about Sim doing maybe his token, but you talked also about having the idea of a token for real estate. And yesterday I was talking to someone who's going to join that mastermind and thought, oh, it's great. Will be backed by like Bitcoin, Ether, some USD, but also some unit token, because I really believe in Michael's vision. And actually, unit doing well will grow the treasury of the Light Leaders. And someone asked, oh, maybe it'd be good also to add some real estate in there. So at the moment, there's no token real estate that I can back it up with. I'm sure it could be coming, and maybe you could use Sim's real estate token, for example, that could like be another way to diversify the ports of the treasury, right?
Yeah, fully spot on. So Alex touched on a really interesting point, tying a real world asset, real estate or a piece of business or a person to digital token. And it's amazing, right? The fact that this is a beautiful place. I love to go on my phone and buy 1% of it, or 0.5% or 2%. But the big problem that people have solved this past 10 years with digital assets is you can't tie a real world thing to a digital asset. It's just impossible. Like you can't tie in a trustless way. If I own 10% of the sanctuary, and I wanted to take 10% of the sanctuary or sell 10% of the sanctuary, it's not liquid. It's a real world thing. So basically, what we assume is that it's impossible to tie a real world thing like a restaurant, like the Light Leaders project, like a person to a digital token. So we basically have this idea of a treasury, and what the project or business has to do, it has to create systems to give confidence to the investors, to the token holders, that the real estate is, in the case of it being sold, the money will go into the treasury. So it is impossible for Sims to sell the property to an American investor, a Chinese investor, a Russian investor, and then screw all his token holders over. So he needs to basically create a system where maybe he signs over the deed, the land, to a trusted third party, and everyone trusts that this trusted third party is not going to sell the land. Please.
So that's exactly what we're working on right now, where we're coming up with a regulatory structure that allows, especially in Indonesia, that we're lobbying the government so that we can figure out a way to tokenize the natural resources of Indonesia. And for that to happen, we need to come up with exactly that there needs to be checks and balances to make sure that the token holders, the value that's guaranteed, first of all, the value of the asset is directly tied to the value of the token using regulated systems. And then the control of actually the buying and selling of the asset is somehow controlled back by the token holders themselves, or at least the owner of the asset needs to have all of the tokens in order to make the decision. Exactly. Right. So coming up with these structures, and that's kind of the next phase of all this, is once those checks and balances are in place, then the entire world opens up. Now, when you think about it, if we take a nickel mine in Indonesia, which is currently being owned partially by a Chinese investor, an American investor, and a European investor, and we break it up into 1 million different tokens, and each one of those tokens can be owned by Ketut and Made, then the prosperity stays in Indonesia. They can benefit from their own natural resources, and it's done in a way that's verifiable and trusted.
Cool. And so then we have other topics we covered during the mastermind, but as you're here again, I'd love to do a little extra part on the token. I thought maybe we can do another. So we talked about your tokens, Sim. We talked about a bit the unit token, about the Light Leaders token. And I don't know, is there someone here who feels have a business or a brand that they could tokenize, and maybe we could do another little example of how this would work?
And disclaimer, there is no Sim token. I'm not planning on making one. We're too busy with a bunch of other stuff. Yeah,
see, after the mastermind.
You guys want some? Everybody wants some? Okay. Anybody else? Yes.
Sim, you're going to want your
Duke token,
man.
I'll buy it since
Your
okay,
personal
perfect.
property right in the digital world.
Question, but let's say from now 20 years, everybody is tokenized their businesses. But what is with the people who are not investing now in crypto? So they're completely fucked up if the system go bust. Where or how do they invest in these companies? So they have to buy, but if they don't have anything, how they can buy?
Now, that is a great question you brought up, and I'm going to step in front of the camera for this one. This is why it's so urgent for us to secure our wealth from the old system to the new system. This is why we echo it constantly, that the old system is collapsing, and it's going to take good people's wealth with it. They're going to diminish the value of assets, diminish the value of money, diminish the value of any kind of investments that people have, to a point where the people who have all of the money will be able to keep theirs, while the average person will have to depend on CBDC-based systems, central bank digital currency-based systems, where wallets are given by governments and money is put into your wallet, and it's controlled as far as how much you can spend and on what. So for them to participate in these economies, in my opinion, is going to be near impossible, if not completely impossible.
This is also based on fear. We are already in there again. So if we are based in fear to act now, to jump into crypto, so we are creating the same shit again what we did before.
Yeah, for me, it's not fear. For me, it's logic. For me, it's just logical to take my wealth and put it somewhere where it's safer.
You feel the tension that the people are coming into this world and they are getting nervous. Oh, I have to jump in. I have to jump in. Likewise, I also jumped in last December, and I was also, I have to jump in. But maybe we are running out of time to just take all the people in that we have not a normal transition, but even if it's getting a transition, it's going to be so fuck up bumpy. It's chaos and anarchy. The people are going to.
Just 2 seconds. Totally agree with you. You know, I 100% agree. I think it's pretty bad the way a lot of crypto people say, hey, if you don't jump in now, you're going to be left because it's going to be the super rich and everyone else is going to suffer. You know, that's like, you got to buy in now. And that's what happened in 2017. You know, people put their life savings when Bitcoin was at, you know, 16K, 17, 18K. And a lot of my friends, you know, worked minimum wage, they lost everything. You know, I'm like, you know, it's so sad when people place students in this bigger, you know, system and this robs them entirely. And when people say, hey, you know, if you jump in now, you're going to be super rich. If you don't, you're going to, you know, be massively inflated and lose everything. I think it's a bit scary and a bit dangerous. And I think the solution is to basically make the rich richer and pull everyone else up. So it's not like telling the Jeff Bezos of the world, you know, you're not going to own 100% of Amazon. You're going to have to distribute it equally to everyone else. So that's like equality. So, you know, all the 2 million Uber drivers, you know, Travis and Garrett, the founder of Uber, they're not going to become billionaires. Everyone gets it equal. They're going to get the same as all the Uber drivers. You know, that's what some people talk about, you know, left wing. It's like, let's make it completely equal. Let's make it flat. It's a bit communist. It's a little bit socialist. What tokens offer is a solution for Jeff Bezos, who has $200 billion, to make $800 billion. You know, his ownership in Amazon isn't as big as it is now. It's world gets a piece of the pie. So what it's going to do, you know, now you have, you know, 1% of the population with a crazy amount of wealth, and then, you know, the rest of the world is kind of like living paycheck to paycheck or in debt, and, you know, you're getting told, hey, if you don't jump into crypto, you're going to miss out, right? But that's really tough. Like, really, a better solution is where, you know, the people who have, you know, hundreds of millions of dollars, now they have hundreds of billions of dollars. The people who are in debt or have nothing have maybe 300K. So the cool thing about it is it just allows money to flow around much more freely. So yeah, please.
Sorry. So first of all, yeah, I totally agree with you. FOMOing into anything is the way to lose money. Never FOMO into anything. Go into it because you understand what's going on. So what you just said is those people, if they buy tokens,
or they participate in the economy. So I don't think it's necessary for them to participate. It's kind of like, you know, the people that were late to getting iPhones. You know, they didn't experience the iPhone 1, the iPhone 2, the iPhone 3, the iPhone 4, the iPhone 5, the iPhone 6, the iPhone 7. But now they finally, like, you know, my father, you know, he said that, you know, the buttons, he preferred his BlackBerry, or he preferred his Nokia, his communicator. He said he wanted real buttons when the first 2 iPhones came out. And now he builds iPhone apps. You know, so a lot of people look at crypto and they go like, okay, you know, it's not for me. But you'll see, you know, the next 5 years, they're going to create their own tokens. You know, let's say I own a warung, I own a restaurant. I might not buy into Bitcoin, but I'll create my own token. My customers will buy into my token. It's not just going to be me trying to promote my warung. Everyone's going to help it be full. You know, we're going to be sold out every day. Yeah, so back to you, Sim.
No, exactly. I totally agree with that. That's what when we say people need to get in, but what we mean is you need to transition yourself to this new economy, right? That's not by just jumping in and FOMOing in. Never do anything because of fear, but have a bigger picture of what's going on in the world. The old economy is dying in a way that you need to be part of this new economy in whichever capacity you can, because the plan is, again, according to my opinion, my own research, my worldview, the plan is for that old world system to keep people complacent and keep them away from these new economies so that they can maintain control over them over the long term. And what was the question?
Well, so let's say I have a business. I have a product that I'm selling. I want to tokenize my business. So now I have 10 friends. They're giving me money by giving me a token. So that money, I guess, will be used for marketing to make the company bigger, make more money. So their token value goes up. But are they buying the token in this charity that does believe in my company? Isn't there like I want some money back, some return of investment. So what's the return of investment? Is it going to be dividends? How are they making money unless someone else is going to go in that believes my company's worth more than they believed? So how does the money work?
So you know, when you make profit with your company, you move some of that profit into the treasury. into this, that it's like a dividends pool. You basically move this money into treasury. As this treasury grows, if you sold 10% to him, 10% to me, we effectively get a percentage of this dividends treasury pool, like profit pool, basically. And if there's nothing in the profit pool, we call it the treasury at the beginning, if we put money in and you run away, we're okay with, we know that we could lose everything because there was nothing in the treasury. So it creates this floor price. So we kind of think that there are 5 types of tokens. The first is like Bitcoin, Ethereum, and DOT and Cardano, big ones where you don't need a treasury. It's kind of like a reserve asset. Without things like Bitcoin, we couldn't do what we're doing because we need digital assets to be in our treasury. We can't have real world bank account. The second one is unit. So as a unit, we think we're no different from every other token in the world. If you tokenize your business, you're going to have to build a treasury. If you don't build a treasury, it's going to be entirely speculatively priced. So if a more clear example, let's say you made 1 million tokens, you sold it at $1 each, there's nothing in the treasury, there's 100% speculation. Meaning if he bought your token, he's depending on me buying it from him, her buying it from me, him buying it from her. If you had $500,000 in the treasury, if nobody buys it from him, at least he owns a percentage of that treasury. Yeah. So it basically provides that fundamental pricing. Yeah.
How do they get money? So the treasury.
So not even. So the thing it's digital treasury. So you don't even have to go to court.
But that depends. Like for me, I have a brand, I have products, I make products.
Yeah.
Right? So for me, the treasury in part would be IP, for example.
So the problem with IP, the problem with real estate, the problem with successful business, the only thing that can go into the treasury are Bitcoin, Ethereum, digital assets, because then it's trustless. We have to assume that you can't tie your digital IP to the digital token. Please.
And then there is no treasury, right? So I don't want to. So
I still lose everything.
Right. I don't know, VC, whatever.
Yeah.
Or I go to consumers, say, look, invest in this new product, and then you get a share of the return, right? But then that product.
They invest in your company. There's nothing in the treasury. They could lose everything.
Yeah.
Now let's say you raised some money. I bought in, he bought in, all of us bought in when the treasury is 0. Now you built the treasury to 50% of what the speculative exchange trading price is. Now people are willing to pay more for it because you've sold more products, you've generated profit, it's built the treasury. So this concept is quite simple, but it's also quite sophisticated, and we believe that this solves the issue of tokenizing businesses, tokenizing, and nobody's really thought about it. So it's just more difficult.
But still, at the very beginning, you need to have a legal structure, right? You need to have a connection between the IP, my company, or something, or it's just a promise,
So I recommend listening to this talk by Brian Armstrong. It's called How to Create Crypto Companies. And he has the vision that at the end of this decade, every single company in the world will be a crypto company. And I fully share this vision where you might have a local PMA, a PT, a limited company in the UK, an LLC in the US, and that is the subsidiary, that's the child company of the token parent. So money will flow from your local Indonesia company or your Singapore company up to the parent token. And we're only interested in investing in the parent token because that's really where most of the value sits. And fair enough, you might have legal structures locally, but we can't entirely depend on it unless we go to court. And we assume that other than in Asia, Singapore and Hong Kong, the court systems, the rest are a bit broken.
Maybe just to precise on the treasury, that's a smart contract where it's locked, and if I have a treasury, I can't use it, I can't touch it.
Exactly. The bank you can touch, the treasury is basically a protection for us as token holders. In the worst case scenario, you run away, we realize that the IP was actually stolen IP, we at least get a percentage of that treasury based on the holdings that we have. So it creates it's a real floor price. So NFTs, they have a floor price, but it's not really a floor price because the moment someone accepts that price, the floor price there's $500,000 in the treasury, then we know that okay, your project won't drop below $500,000 because there's 500,000, like 10 Bitcoin in the treasury. Yeah, right. See.
Yeah, I'm thinking I'd love to take 10 minutes to more finish the presentation and then go more in depth so we can stay on a higher level in a way. But yeah, I think on the tokens, that's we've covered quite a lot already. To be honest, that's probably the most exciting and more concrete for me with that event is there will be a lot of people who create their own token, who have each other's token in our treasury. That can lead to, on the next slide, decentralized governance. I mean, I'm sure, Michael, that's something you can speak about also really well. But in the context of that mastermind, it's about discovering new ways that we can govern. So if you take the Light Leaders Mastermind, myself and 3 other people, we've initiated it, but we really want to make it also experimental and flexible. That's why we have a vision. But let's say if SIM invites a lot of people to that event, well, the way we're going is towards a decentralized organization, towards a DAO with smart rules. And that can be done overnight. It takes some expertise to do the right rules. So you combine more decentralization with also some kind of efficiency. That's how we will do with the mastermind also, is to decentralize it in a way that if SIM, for example, jumps in, has a lot of people who trust him and contributes a lot, we arrive at a point where maybe I want to make a change, and that change doesn't happen to the mastermind, because that's how it goes. Like the founders let go of control. It's not just the value that's redistributed, but also the power. Personally, I'm also super interested. I remember when I interviewed also Michael in my podcast, we talked about the Seasteading Institute and like new methods of governance. But what's happening also with those community, crypto-wise, is new methods of governance that in a few years, as we have our own sovereign nations, we will be happy to experiment with on a nation level. How do you govern also those like bigger nations? And we will have all the learnings from all these projects. Because you want to decentralize, and for example, Michael's been working like 6 years now on Unit. If I join the project, I think it's normal that my vote is not as important as his vote, right? So that's yeah, we'll experiment, and we'll encourage also probably the bigger organization that join the mastermind to also themselves think about how they can decentralize their governance in a way that stays efficient too. And the first step of that for us, we've created a Discord server. So that's a bit like an evolved, let's say, if evolved Telegram with channels. So we can start talking about the tokenomics, talking about how we govern, talking about a few things. And the idea is we have the first event tomorrow, actually. So that's where we have the 4 guest speakers I talked about. And from that event, it's 5 hours. So we'll like mastermind, brainstorm a lot. And that's like really a kickstart. But then we have the Discord, but also co-creating that thing that we're all part of. And then we'll have other events. We'll have the next 2 ones, like one will probably be physically in Bali, and another one more America time, because we have a lot of people interested in the America time zone too. Like they can get a recording, but still. But so that's where we're at with DAOs, and it's super interesting to dive into this. You can dive into bigger organizations that already work this way. But here it's a way to do it ourselves and see how it works and learn so much from it. So creating tokens, creating decentralized organization. Do you want to add something?
No, I think fully spot on. So, it's a whole exciting new world, where when Alex is more successful than he is, we get a tiny piece of his future success. And we wouldn't just want to support him because we're his friend, we believe in his vision, we like what he does, but, we can get a piece of that success too. And Light Leaders can also support many other tokens. So as mentioned before, we think there's 5 different types of tokens. So the first one is Bitcoin, Ethereum, Polkadot, Cardano. Like these are the big protocols that allow a lot of this blockchain infrastructure to exist. They're decentralized, they're unlikely to disappear. The second one is we think things like Unit. We think we're one of the first platforms that easily make it easy to create tokens, and the value of these tokens are built on the treasury. So that's the second one. The third one is industries and cities. So we think the biggest tokens in the next few years, they're not going to be generic protocols. They're not going to be really complicated DeFi applications. They're going to be things like the Bali token, things like the New York token, things like the San Francisco token, things like the fashion token, music token. So these represent entire industries. The fourth one are agencies. So things like, Light Leaders, things like maybe Sims Group, which basically help people to create their own tokens, advise them how to do it, maybe charge a percentage of tokens, take a fee. These are agencies that are going to get, every single warong in Bali and Indonesia to create a token. And the fifth one is project token. So the idea that, all of us here are involved in projects ourselves, or we have friends with projects, we'll just say, hey, create a token. And then they'll be like, oh, can you help me create a token? And you're like, I can't help you, but he can help you, or Sims can help you, or people who run the agencies can help you. So we're super excited because there are about 8,000 tokens that exist in the world now. And other than the top 200, most of them aren't very full. They maybe shoot up in price and then they completely die. We're really excited for a future where there's 8 million or 800 million tokens. Where we've been in Bali now maybe a few months, a few years. We're gonna have a portfolio of different restaurants, different gyms, different cafes, different people, musicians, artists, and all of that is, going back to your point, backed up by its treasury, the underlying products and services that it offers, which makes a profit, which backs up its value. It's not just the speculative exchange price that more while buying it shoots up in value. It's really the underlying value it's created. Yeah. A little bit. So it's the underlying treasury needs to be stored in digital assets, because the only well, you need some reserve assets, because the issue is, now the global reserve asset is the US dollar. Going back to Sim's point, all of it revolves around the US, right? The problem with that is, as I mentioned, the US is printing a ridiculous amount of money. And where does it move that money to? Afghanistan, Iraq, pharmaceutical industry, massive grants for livestock or certain industry. That's arguably centralized. So the cool thing about Bitcoin is, fair enough, there might be a few people who got in a bit earlier. It's still super early now. It's still super early for the next 3-5 years. But then at least those people benefit absolutely more, but relatively everyone else is pulled up. So as long as, Bitcoin is able to increase its usage, holders, over time, I'm excited for Bitcoin to get to $50 million, and I think it's completely doable. If you think like when Bitcoin's $50, it'll go to 60K. That's the same feeling that now it's at 40, 50, 60K. It's going to go to 100 million. It just sounds kind of unrealistic. But when Bitcoin's at $40, if someone said, hey, in 2021 it's going to be at 60K, yeah, back to you.
Bitcoin's 100 million rupiah. Do you want it? Bitcoin's 100 million Indian rupiah. Do you want it? Yeah. Bitcoin's $100 million. Oh my God, the dollar's special all of a sudden? No, they're all fiat currencies. They all go to zero in the end. They will, mathematically speaking, Bitcoin will get to $100 million at some point, maybe in about 20 years, maybe in about 30 years, maybe in about 40 years, depending on how crushed the dollar is. Is it going to buy $100 million worth of stuff, value from today? No, it might buy like, a nicer car or something, but $100 million will buy that nicer car.
In that case, not compare, let's not compare Bitcoin to 100 million euros or dollar or whatever. Let's compare it to something that's physical that actually, in a way, will not change value.
Yes.
So how would you value it then? Let's say Bitcoin now buys you a tiny villa. How many of these villas will you have when it's worth 100 million? Would you still have just one?
The running joke is Bitcoin used to buy a candy. Then Bitcoin was able to buy a meal. Then it bought one pizza with 10,000 Bitcoin. Then you could buy a Civic. Then you could buy a Tesla. Now it's at the range of buying a nice Benz. Pretty soon it's going to be a Bugatti. Then it's going to be a palace. Then it's going to be islands. So the actual value that's in there is going up, and that is being subsidized.
You need more and more money to bring it up.
Exactly, and the money.
Point, you cannot bring it up.
And the money is coming
to like real product value.
And the money is coming from all the people who are invested in the traditional system, whose value is being drained. So there's 1.3 quadrillion dollars of money that's sitting in the old system, and that is going to be drained and put into these new digital assets. That's what's already happened. That's where the $2 trillion of market cap has already come from. There's another 100-something trillion that's coming. And this is what we're saying. When we're saying they're going to crush the value of currencies, crush the value of bonds, crush the value of stocks, crush the value of derivatives, all the traditional assets, their dollar-denominated value might go up, but the actual value that's sitting inside of the assets is going down mathematically, and the value of cryptocurrencies is being fed by that value, because value never gets destroyed. So it'll get to a point once you can buy an island with it, and you won't be able to buy countries with it, sure. But mathematically speaking, it's going to get up to the point right around buying islands. That's, again, my opinion in this.
And maybe even more, because, now so much money is trapped in real estate. So, the richest people in London, in New York, in Hong Kong, where do they keep their money? They keep it in real estate, they keep it in gold, they keep it in fine art, they keep it in like commodities that last generations. But if you keep it in cash, you keep it in companies, these things don't last. But the cool thing about Bitcoin is, we've seen it crash 95%, but it doesn't die, in the sense that it's an asset which is able to retain its value, and you get a percentage of this trustless store. So I'm really confident that, as say 100 super nice apartments in London or New York. In the future, it might get you only $100 million worth of value. It might get you only 20, because an apartment used to cost $1 million now. For its better now, it costs $5 million, so like 5 times inflation. But it's still, because the growth of Bitcoin, at least will get you more apartments per se. Yeah.
Can I jump in and go back also to the presentation there on the DAO side? And also to keep on the on the topic of this, but yeah, like, because I think we talked also about it in the beginning, and that relates to governance, and that relates also to tokens. We'll have Phase NASA Rally, this created high vibe network, and it's we'll talk a lot about the new ways, the new paradigm of content creation, and also, can we go to next slide? Yeah. Of content creation. And also of social media. So the social media that's coming, like a fake, is one where, okay, I use Facebook. Well, that new social media, let's call it new social media. I use new social media. I love it. And so when I interact with it, I have some tokens somehow, or even maybe I invest in it. So I own part of it. And when I refer people, maybe I get some of that token. And as I help that social media grow and it becomes very successful, not just the founders and the shareholders make money, but also I'm rewarded for it. Plus, I can decide where it's going. So if I've been using new social media and it's trying techniques to addict me, it's doing, I don't know what with my data, sending it to advertisers, start censoring me, well then, because as users, we make the decision, maybe we say, hey, actually we vote, so that's what ties on to the governance. If Mark, something who's the owner of new social media, wants to make it more addictive, they'll need to submit a proposal saying, oh, we want to make these changes, and maybe the community as users, we have the power. We have more power than the founder together. So we can say, well, it's not really what we want for our social media. Like, I also have a life. I don't want to spend all my time in front of a laptop. So that's something we'll talk about. How we reward the content creator, how we reward also a user that's doing great work there, how we govern them together, and how we make them censorship resistant also in a smart way. And then on the mastermind, if we go to the next, another thing that's really important is the power of communities and collective intelligence. So here we put 1 + 1 = 11. So that's the idea of masterminding. We could see already with that conversation, we talked about, like Sim, you talked about real estate token, and you come with the unit and the tokenization, and we all have some different ideas how it can create some great synergies. So again, in that mastermind, you learn from the best in the world. I think, Michael, you're among the best in the world for tokens, for sure. Same what Sid's doing with the DAOs, what Faye's doing with social media and content creation. And Holochain is also a really, really interesting project to dive into. The idea is to also brainstorm with like-minded change makers. So during the event live, you will do little groups where we can have these discussions and be like, hey, I want to do a token actually for my healing center. What do you think? And people can bounce ideas on top of having Michael during that session. And then inside the Discord group going forward. Support each other's mission and businesses. So we talked about it. In a traditional mastermind, it'd be, let's say, Sim, we're in the same mastermind. Maybe you trust my opinion and we're like 5 people and we bounce ideas and we help you. And maybe I also go on my Telegram channel and say, hey, Sim's doing this great thing. So we brainstorm, we support. But here we also add the token one. So it's in that new paradigm, there's that financial weaving included. If people want, I mean, maybe I love your project. I can have some of your token in my treasury. Like this, when you do well, I do well too. Maybe you're not that in treasury, so it doesn't have to be reciprocal, or there's no obligation either. and yeah, bring our visions together into manifesting the new us. So the vision there is a series of events with a mastermind. The vision we had, and again, that vision is flexible based on the people who join, because it's not like about some people who have a vision and my way or the highway, our way or the highway. It's about the thing's going to be flexible and it's going to take a turn that we can't expect already, and we'll see from that collective intelligence. But let's say to have some kind of flexible vision, it's after a few events to have 144 really strong light leaders who each have their community. So Michael, it can be me with my groups, it can be you, Sim, it can be everyone here who has a community and a reach. And then you can see how when you have people in a mastermind setting who are very capable, who are influential, who are committed to bringing better system or fair to our new us, and we come together, help each other out, we interlace our businesses too, we share very valuable information, how that can have a huge impact. So it's something, it's called the Maharishi effect for people who are into transcendental meditation. It's like to have a critical mass. So the 144, and then who have like 1,000 critical mass, and that's how we do this. And probably other people have similar ideas. I haven't seen things that are as advanced in the new paradigm. I'm part of great masterminds like Love Out Loud by my friend Nicole and Humans I Trust by my friend Virginia, and there's a lot of great things. Faith Nazarali is doing great ones, but so there'll be other ones, and we'll collaborate in that new paradigm of abundance and collaboration. So if we go to the next slide, that's a little bit the idea. And a bonus we did is to join in, like, we don't want your credit card, we don't want your dollars. You buy an NFT this one has been designed by a psychedelic artist who lives here in Bali. And I think it's also interesting for many people get their first NFT, see how it works. And the idea is also maybe if the community does well, maybe in 4 years when there's the Light Leaders Island with its own laws, and there'll be the first tokens, like the first NFTs to be part of that first event. And yeah, so that's the vision there. The event's tomorrow, 3 to 8 p.m. Online, and it's better to go live because we have breakout rooms and we'll make it in a workshopy, interactive way. People can get the recording too and then join the Discord and community this way. The NFT, so we've had a pricing that increased. So at the moment it's at 0.06 Ether. That'd be about $200. Yeah, and so we have our own token also going towards the DAO. So that's more. I wanted to finish also the presentation of what we're creating, because I think the people who join your group, I mean, Sim, you'll be joining too, is people who are very aligned both with the values but also the tools that we use. And as it's going to be a fun experiment too, you know, creating a token, creating a DAO all together, and you see there's the intention of that ends up in something magnificent, and we'll see. Yeah. So.
Michael, I have a question. So it's Unity you're talking?
UNIT.
Unity, okay. Tell me if I'm wrong, you want to build something similar to Rally, or you'll be able to provide a tool for anybody to create the community token?
To an extent, with the key difference that this token isn't just backed up by, as you say, the speculative price, the exchange price, the fact that it's backed up by a treasury of digital assets. Okay. And we have a bunch of features that make it more valuable, we would say.
So any organization or individuals can then...
Anyone. So it's basically, there's a create token page. You basically add a name, a symbol, a picture, and a supply. And yeah.
Is that something that, for example, right now there is Chili's for, let's say, a
sports
team, and there is a Rally for individuals, then go into the process. But in yours, will we be able to instantly create our token and do whatever we want with it?
Absolutely. And we're built on
supply, maybe burn some.
100%. So we're built on this thing called Polkadot. So Polkadot, we think, is the most advanced blockchain technology. The reason why is Bitcoin was this first amazing thing in 2008, 2009. It let, Alex pay me pay you, you pay him in a trustless way. So we don't have to trust a bank. Groundbreaking, we store value, nobody can freeze it. Then Ethereum said in 2004, Vitalik said, let's build decentralized other things. Let's build decentralized news. Let's build decentralized social networks, like what Alex was saying. But the problem with Ethereum, we think, is everyone's trying to build on this one single chain, this like general purpose blockchain. And the cool thing about Polkadot is it lets you build your own chain. So, Unit Network, we have our own chain. And, instead of doing all of the work of building a blockchain from scratch, Polkadot basically gives us the tools. It's called Substrate. It lets us build the chain. And the cool thing about Polkadot is it keeps our chain secure. So it's really difficult actually when you create a blockchain to keep it secure in a trustless way. So, you've got Binance Smart Chain, you've got EOS, and they've got 21 validators to keep it secure. But some people criticize it, being centralized or not entirely decentralized or trusted. So Polkadot basically allows that shared security, it's called. And the other cool thing it offers is it allows for interoperability. So this basically means that, for instance, in the future, when there's a light leaders chain and there's a Sims chain, these two blockchains can talk to one another without going through an exchange. Yeah. So it basically allows the blockchain of blockchains, and we think that the creator of Polkadot is a friend, the CTO of Ethereum, Gavin Wood. He was largely the reason why Ethereum was so successful, and we think that with what he's doing with Polkadot, even though they have released significant updates this year, people look at the price of DOT tokens and they go like, why isn't it increasing? Everything else is increasing. We think that Polkadot as a technology is going to be the next leap or evolution in the blockchain space.
So just talking about investing in your company, so what you're doing looks like what I've been looking for and I cannot find really online currently. So you almost, I guess you're almost complete with your technology. Did you already put out an ICO or a way to invest in your company, in your token?
We've completed some of the sale, but we've basically worked on the technology. Our community is 30,000 people. We have maybe 200 tokens issued, personal tokens or amazing community tokens like this. Yeah, and then over the coming months, we plan on pushing out the unit token. And the cool thing is, all of these funds, they don't get spent for operations, they don't get spent for marketing, they go straight into the treasury. So the cool thing is, it provides that underlying value for the unit token. And how does unit as a token fill up its treasury? We take a 0.5% exchange fee. So let's say if you bought $100 of Light Leaders token, not direct, because direct there's no fee. Or on the sale, if you bought it on the exchange, then you pay, let's say you bought $100, you pay 50 cents, and that goes to the unit token treasury.
Okay.
So
today if I want to buy Unite token, is there a solution for an outside investor to come and buy some before it's listed on exchanges?
Yeah, for sure. And the only way to get onto the unit platform is to get invited. So you need to find someone like Alex or myself. We'll send you an invitation link, and then you can sign up and purchase, deposit tokens, create your tokens.
Is there a referral through the invite process?
Yes, there is. So basically, so there's a 2% exchange fee. So if you bought, $100 of a token, let's say a restaurant token, there's $98 that gets spent to buy the token on the exchange. The other 2%, it gets split 4 ways. 1/4 goes to unit, the unit's treasury. So we benefit from changes all across this, we call it the token economy. 1/4 goes to the token's treasury. So if you bought some Light Leaders token on the exchange, 1/4, so 50 cents, $100 goes to the Light Leaders treasury. 1/4 of it goes to, let's say Sims, let's say inviting you to the platform. So if he gets 1,000 people as an influencer, he's basically built his own exchange. Because as they do exchanges, he benefits from that 0.5% exchange fee. And then 1/4 goes to the people who staked Light Leaders token and USDU tokens to provide that liquidity to trade against.
Okay, great.
Yeah, I hope it wasn't too in depth.
Thank you. I think I got your point with the treasury, right? So you have your money in the treasury, you have less risk. But let's say I get a bunch of money, they're buying my tokens, and 100% is going into the treasury, then the company is not growing because I don't have any money for marketing, I cannot grow the company. Or I can take 50% or whatever I choose and put 50% in the treasury and use 50%. Is that kind of what you're doing? Or
Absolutely. So, we're going to invest in your company, look at your token, but we're going to assume that you could be a scammer. You could just run away. You could have fabricated all the documents. Let's say we bought into, a warong and you told us, we own the building, but you actually fabricated the land deed or something. So we have to assume that you're a scammer in the sense that, if your project is traded at $1 million valuation, if there's nothing in the treasury, if we bought some of your tokens, we need to know that we could lose everything. And that's totally fine because, we could give you this money, you could do something really good with it. But the reason why we're investing in you or buying your token is because we believe that, you're going to have products and services. These products and services are going to generate some profits going to treasury. But what's important is that when we invest in you, we need to know like what is our downside, like what is our potential risk, because a lot of people buy into projects, DeFi tokens, altcoins, tokens in general, and there is no floor price, meaning that if nobody buys it from you, then you're holding a digital token that's essentially, in our opinion, worthless. Yeah.
And then the treasury. I pick, or you mentioned Polkadot, Ethereum, Bitcoin. Is that something you pick? Is that something I pick? I say, hey, here's my treasury. Do you want to work with me? Or are you saying this is a treasury? That's what you have to do. Who's in control?
So we're building on Polkadot's infrastructure, and when you create a token with unit, you automatically get a bank and you get a treasury. So the bank is what you can operationally use. You can pay your staff, you can pay your rent, you can, let's say your restaurant, you can buy ingredients, you can pay for marketing. When you sell token, all of this goes to your digital bank. So we can basically see when we bought your token, how much of your operational day-to-day P&L, how much do you have? And then for us, for your token price to grow, we're going to look at how much of this money you make goes into your treasury. Because if you just keep it in the bank, like you said, you could have borrowed money from a bank and we're like, wow, you made a lot of money, but it's actually borrowed money, Or you could be using your personal money and putting it in, and then everyone goes, wow, it looks really good. So we'll be like, okay, your bank has grown really big. Can you move some to the treasury? And it's effectively like giving out dividends. And why this is better than dividends is because, when you make profit, you pay out dividends, it's still possible to fake it. You could, do that 50 times and it looks like you've got 50 times revenue because, let's say you made $1,000 or you have $1,000, you could put money, your token, pay it out as dividends, use that money, put it back in the token, put it out as dividends, and you've got 50,000 in revenue. But the cool thing about treasury is once you put it in, the only way that it can be accessed, taken out, is when us as token holders, nobody wants to buy it from us, and we go to the treasury and we give back our token and we get back a percentage of the treasury. So it's really simple, but it's quite groundbreaking, really.
Money.
Yeah, so they can buy it, they can sell on the exchange, and that's the exchange price, and that changes over time. But people are going to look at the exchange price relative to the underlying treasury price. And it's really cool because you can look at all the restaurants in Bali, in Chengdu, in Ubud, and go, okay, which one has the fastest growing treasury? Because I want to buy it higher than what it is, because soon the floor price, the treasury price is going to go over what it's valued at, and then there's no way I'm going to lose money.
But how do you talk about liquidity? I mean, it's like normally everybody is talking about liquidity. If there's no liquidity, you cannot buy it. I mean, for like a little token, I have 10 people. Yeah. What's the liquidity for someone to sell it? Yeah. Who is going to buy it?
This is a great question. So there's two types of exchanges. There's centralized exchanges and there's decentralized exchanges. There's two brackets. And centralized exchanges, things like Binance, things like Coinbase, things like OKX, they use order books. So same as the stock exchange, you want to buy at this price. Someone is able to sell it because you want to buy at this price. And then the really cool thing is you've got automated market makers. You've got like Bancor was the first in 2017. Uniswap last year, this year it was quite a craze. PancakeSwap, SushiSwap. And the cool thing about these AMMs, automated market makers, it isn't people saying, I want to buy at this price or I want to sell at this price. They basically stake two tokens. So like, what's your company called? Or your token, hypothetically?
I just I don't know yet. So
so let's say it's
the Michael token.
The Michael token. So me as a token holder of you, I would stake some Michael tokens and I would stake some USD tokens, right? And then if anyone wants to buy it, they trade against this AMM, against this exchange pool. And as the ratio of these two tokens in the exchange pool change, that affects the current price. And why is it liquid? Because if a lot of people are staking tokens into this exchange pool, they benefit from the fees, and it provides that constant liquidity. Yeah.
One last question,
please.
So let's say, I say I want to put 30% of everything into the pool, or 70. Yeah. Who's deciding on your end to say, okay, if it's 50% is minimum, it has to be 70%, 10%?
So you get to decide everything. So you as the operator, you as the manager of it, you're working with our community, and we want you to succeed because we have a piece of your future success. And you're going to do what's best, not just for you, but for everyone else. Because when you grow the treasury, it pushes up the exchange price, and then you benefit and everyone else benefits.
Can I ask a question?
On the tokens you have yourself.
Okay.
We as who? You as
okay, me as your
token I have left in my hands from the total token amount.
If let's say you had a real estate project and you say the real estate project is tied to the digital token, if you hold none of these tokens left, we as token holders of your restaurant, your real estate project, are going to be like, okay, is he incentivized enough to continually grow the token? You know, so
What would you say is a good ratio of
But,
ownership versus?
yeah, I think to be
because
complete,
the treasury is not accessible, right?
It-
Money in,
you can, but you need to give up your tokens, and it's unlikely you're going to give up your tokens for a percentage of the treasury because you might as well sell on the exchange, because the exchange is not just paying that lowest price. The exchange is willing to pay higher than what the lowest price is.
so my incentive to put
Money in the treasury after the very beginning is to grow the value of the tokens I have left.
Spot on. So it's
Okay.
you look at Apple. Apple is $200 billion in cash. It's valued at $2-3 billion. So that $200 billion, they could pay it out as dividends, but now the valuation of Apple is affected. And why is the value of Apple 2.8 billion more than the 200 billion it has? Because people value it based on the fact that this 200 billion is growing every year. It's generating profit. Does that make sense? Yeah. So if in the case of Apple, let's say they only had 3 billion.
It's not only because they're growing their cash, it's also because with that cash they have the possibility to reinvest, right? So it's not.
I guess the cool thing is, you know, Apple is a publicly traded company. We're trying to apply this publicly traded aspect, the stock exchange, for everything in the world.
But that's what I mean, like the treasury.
Yeah.
You can, without selling your token, you cannot reinvest it. So it's like, okay, you're growing a pool of cash or virtual cash.
And our thesis is that, you know, like MicroStrategy, these digital assets will appreciate. Like the reason why people pay out dividends, they don't hold on to cash, is because it's subject to inflation, or they don't want to become a fund essentially. But we imagine a future where, you know, every single warong here, every single project in the world will have a reserve, a treasury of digital assets like Bitcoin.
As a company, okay, so I've put a lot in the treasury, but now I want to expand. I want to double my company, buy a competitor, whatever. You know, I cannot take money out of the treasury. I need cash. What do I do?
Your bank then, because if you wanted to use it, you keep it in your bank. But we want to be protected that you don't blow the money, or, you know, secretly pay yourself in a secondary company like WeWork has. You know, with Adam Newman, he had a second company which he was selling, buying buildings from, benefiting personally. So we have to assume that. I'll give an example. So like, let's say he's a potential rock star. You know, he's going to be a famous musician, and all of us buy into him at a $10,000 market. So we give him, you know, 5 people give him $1,000 each. Now with this $5,000, he's become, you know, the next Mick Jagger, or the next you know, Justin Bieber, like worldwide phenomenon. He's turned this $5,000 to $50 million. Okay, but if it's all in the bank, you know, he could be like, guys, you know, I'm very popular in Asia, but I want to be global. You know, so we as token holders, we can't say, hey, the $50 million, can we get a piece of that? You know, we give you $5,000. We want at least $1 million. And he's like, no, guys, you know, you invested me all the way. You know, so he can use that $50 million, like you say, expand and grow, but we don't benefit anything. And he could just blow it all. He could just spend it all. But if there was a treasury, he could move some of that 50 million into the treasury, maybe like 25. And then we know he's got 25 for operations, 25 is at least back. So in the worst case scenario, you know, he no longer becomes a huge hit. We still get that percentage of whatever's in the treasury. So it's really protecting investors. And they also know when they buy into him as an artist, what is his exchange price versus what is his like secured treasury price. Yeah, the lowest price, the floor price. Yeah, does it make sense? Yeah.
It makes sense. I don't know. I'd like to see to look a little bit more at the numbers, like to make sure there are incentives on both parts.
Yeah. I get also a question from the
Wait.
About the exchange of your community tokens, are you going to use Polkadot, or do you build your own decentralized exchange?
Yeah, so we have our own exchange, and every single token has its own exchange. So whenever you create a token on unit, you know, it takes, you know, seconds to do. You get like 7 features. You can create polls, you can create a store, you can create contests to give away tokens for specific actions, and you can exchange as well as stake tokens, which people exchange against. Yeah.
I have a question
Please.
about that, because right now we're building out the legal
Structures around how to tokenize real estate, right? So let's imagine I want to tokenize the sanctuary.
Yeah.
And we want to turn it into 1 million tokens and sell it to people.
Yeah.
Right? How would that process look like using a treasury structure?
Cool. So very simply, you know, you would maybe move this real estate to a PMA, show the people who potentially buy the tokens that this PMA won't sell the asset. It's secured. It's like a trusted custody of this asset. Then you would create a token, and we believe that, you know, this token is representing this PMA or this asset, right? Now, when we buy into this this token, we know that if you were to sell this asset, you know, let's say the two of us bought 10% each, we would be getting 10% of whatever it's sold for. right? Now, if it generates rent, we would expect you to give us 10%, all that rent would go into the treasury. And then over time, if the treasury grows, like let's say this place, just keep it simple, is $1 million project. So you create $1 million tokens as $1 each. When you create it, there's nothing in the treasury, there's nothing in the bank. Now, to keep it simple, let's say in a year it makes $500,000 in rent money, right? So after a year, it's gone from $0 in the treasury to $500,000 in the treasury. So at the beginning, when we bought it at 100% risk, meaning if we gave this money and it turned out to be a scam, which I'm sure it's not, we will lose everything. But after a year, there's $500,000 in the treasury. Even if it turns out to be a scam, we only lose 50%. After a year, we lose 0%. After 1.5 years, we have gained 50%. Sorry, please.
At the beginning, wasn't it backed by the real estate itself?
It is.
Right? So it's $1 million of the value of the real estate, so the risk is still zero.
It's true. But the problem is you can't tie real estate to a digital token in a trustless way. In the sense that, I could have, I could say my restaurant is worth $22 million. I could say, in my bank account, I've got, $4 million in profits from my past year. And if you buy this digital token, you're entitled to this $4 million US dollars. But you can't prove it in a trustless way. Have you guys heard of Wirecard? So Wirecard used to be the biggest poster child tech company of Germany. And it was a $30 billion company until, early last year. And how it fell apart was because the German stock exchange, they found out that $2 billion they said they had in cash didn't exist. They basically hired actors to pretend that to lie to the auditors. So the auditors are basically saying, okay, it's true, they've got $2 billion in cash. And this was like a publicly traded company. It was, the tech company that, Germany was most proud of. And overnight, it went from $30 billion to worthless. And it was all because they said they had $2 billion in a Filipino account. But because it was about this treasury is, you could say that, it's backed by this real estate. You could say that there's, oil under this piece of land. But until the oil is extracted or until the real estate generates a lot of profit, which creates digital tokens which go into the treasury, then you have to assume that it might not exist. Yeah. Does that kind of make sense? Yeah.
And so sorry, can you unmute me? What the solution we're coming up with is we're getting governments involved and getting so he's saying trustless way, which means removing people from the process. But for now, what we're doing is creating a combination of the old system and the new system using regulators to guarantee and vet the fact that the value of this property is a certain amount, and then tying the value of this property to the token using legal structures, and then the rest of it's being done through the tokenization process.
That would be the last thing I would trust, honestly, because just looking at property, everybody lies on the value of property in Indonesia.
Yep.
So the government is the last person I would trust on the value of property, because like even the value of the property that's declared when is totally fake. So.
And that's a completely fair point.
Analogy. So we're building 2 projects here in Bali. One of them is 10 villas, costing $500,000. When we create the token at the beginning, we have 500,000 tokens. We sell them for $1 each. There's nothing in the bank, nothing in the treasury. So people are buying it knowing that if it turns out to be a huge scam, we basically cheated them off their money. Now our plan is when we've built the 10 villas, we want to sell 5 of them for $100,000 each. So we sell 5 of them for $100,000. All of this money goes into the treasury. So now, even if it turns out to be a scam, everyone at least has got their money back. The $500,000 that they paid is now in the treasury. And the cool thing is we've got 5 other villas which are being sold, which is generating rent every month, and it's growing the treasury even more. So this is the 10 villas that we're building here, and we're looking, we're finalizing now the proposal for Kura Kura. It's this amazing island, 500 hectares right by the airport. And it's really cool because, as you mentioned, the Indonesian government's involved, and they want to build like a sustainable development island. So it's 450 hectares. They've sat on it for like 10, 15 years and not done anything. But now, they're bringing the G20 next year. They want to transform this to be like the hub for Indonesia. And we're really excited because our vision is to turn this into be like the crypto hub of the world. Because there isn't like a Silicon Valley or a mecca for crypto tokens in the world.
There is another idea that if you just buy real estate, that you tokenize and you create a smart contract saying that, so you are the owner of that token, and every time it will be sold in this lifetime, you will take a share, like 2% of the sale, Can you include this idea in your system?
The problem is it's easy to fake. So we kind of assume that, you know, everyone, including myself, is a potential scammer. You know, you're a scammer, he's a scammer. And we just have to assume that you might not be a scammer now, but you could be in the future. So we have to assume that if it's not in the treasury, it doesn't exist. And you could, you know, have the most sound, regulatory compliant, best lawyers in the world. But if the real world asset hasn't been sold or generates profit, which generates digital assets, which goes to the treasury, then it doesn't. But it's actually it's a very controversial point because, you know, for something like you know, a protocol, a blockchain project worth, you know, $100 million or a real estate project worth $10 million, it's so difficult to build the treasury, right? So it's a much more difficult way than to just have it be the speculative trading price. You know, but what we assume is that this is what the only way that we're going to get 100 million tokens to be issued, and for people to evaluate projects in a trustless way. Yeah, but totally agree. I think what Sims is doing is amazing because, you know, we basically need projects with working with the government with strong, you know, regulatory setups. I'll give an example. Like a friend got offered $1.9 million for his 4-bedroom up in Ubud, and he spent 3 years building it. He didn't want to sell it. So what we're doing here is very similar to what Sims mentioned. We create a token. There's no money that goes in the treasury, but the token represents a percentage of the property, and people are comfortable buying a piece of the property. The investor who wanted to buy it for 1.9 million, he's paying 2.2 million for 50%. So he's paying 1.1 million. That 1.1 million goes to my friend, and both of them are happy because they both now have a shared stake in what they think is going to be worth more. And there's nothing in the treasury. So even the rent money they generate, you know, that could go into the treasury, you know, but at least people who buy into the token, they know, okay, like where do they stand in terms of value and transparent. Yeah.
Can Joe
Please.
Hey, Michael. Can you hear me? You can hear me? I think Sim's on mute. Okay, I assume you can hear me. So what I wanted to ask is, first of all, on the real estate or any tokens that are based in the real world, certainly tokens allow for you to see the property rights. A deed is better than a deed, but as you're talking about, the value doesn't need to be reflected in the real world. That the wrapper, the bank and the treasury allows for the value to flow freely. But question I wanted to ask is, somebody was asking about liquidity pools, and every token, whether it's SIM token or, you know, Kura token or whatever it is, it's USDU and that token. So maybe all the tokens we're talking about are like, you know, the base value, the tradable value, and then the spending value. But the stable coins are a little bit different. So maybe, Michael, if you wanted to go into a little bit, like the treasury also enables us to have the kind of stable coin that we have, whether it's USDU or BTCU, which is Bitcoin on the unit blockchain. So maybe talk about that.
Treasury doesn't just need to hold Bitcoin or Ethereum or DOT. If you don't trust crypto assets, you think they could fluctuate or they're too unstable, you can hold it in digital stablecoins, like, you know, the digital rupiah, the digital US dollar, the digital Swiss franc, the digital Turkish lira, the digital Russian ruble, the digital Chinese yuan, Hong Kong dollar, whatever, Singapore dollar. And how do these digital stablecoins operate? So it's actually very different from how most stablecoins operate now. So, you know, USDT is and it should really be backed up by what it says, but currently it's just backed up by the speculative belief that, you know, one USDT is worth $1. Same with USDC. You know, people thought that, okay, you know, Circle, Coinbase, they're behind this. They have, you know, $1 for every USDC token, but they just announced next week, guys, we're actually going to do that. We don't do that now. So how we intend on solving this is we're not saying that we can keep, you know, 50, 100, $200 million, whatever amount in a bank account somewhere around the world and not have it be frozen. We're keeping it in digital assets. So we're keeping it in like Bitcoin, ETH, and DOT. And the thesis is that when this Bitcoin and ETH grows in value, over time, the underlying backing for these digital stablecoins will become over collateralized. So to give an example, let's say there's 1 million, you know, IDR, 1 million USDU that has been issued. Now, when people buy it, they use Bitcoin, they use ETH, they use DOT to buy it. Now, let's say the Bitcoin now becomes worth $4 million. It doesn't mean that, you know, if you hold half of the USDU, you own, you know, half of $4 million, like $2 million. It just means that now the backing of this USD token is 4 times collateralized. Yeah, does that make sense? So it's really cool because this basically creates a decentralized stablecoin. And the other problem, as what Sim mentions, why USDT is a little bit scammy, and I'm also friends with the people who started it, so I tell them this, is it can be frozen anytime. So anytime USDT as an organization says, hey, we're going to freeze your account, they can just do that. So like we think it's really cool to have a decentralized stablecoin. Yeah.
It's the same with every stablecoins currently.
Please ask the question. We'll repeat it.
A lot.
All right. I mean, like, so, but if it's collateralized with
Digital assets.
Digital assets, I mean, like, put out Bitcoin and so on. So, okay, it could be over collaterals, but it could be at some point it would be the opposite.
So that's where it's interesting. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah. So if it's collateralized by crypto assets, it'd be over collateralized, but it could also be under collateralized at some point as well.
Logically, at some point it will be under collateralized.
So I guess our thesis is that, if it becomes under collateralized, then that's an opportunity for people to buy into it. So if you could buy, $1 worth of USDT for 80 cents, it's a good idea because you're basically making 20%. So our thesis, and this is a thesis, is that Bitcoin, ETH, DOT, these are heavily deflationary assets. These are things that are significantly, as is mentioned, undervalued at the moment. And it's going to lead to two things. One is a lot of these digital assets being locked up, frozen, or basically locked up in treasuries. So it basically limits the supply and increases the price. And number two is that they're going to be worth more because so few people on Earth actually use digital assets at the moment. And even the people who actually use digital assets, hold digital assets, they don't actually use it. So we think that, when people are actually using it, for instance, for your business, for the project that you enjoy, then that's what's going to get Bitcoin to $50 million. It's going to get Ethereum to $1 million. It's going to get, yeah.
But then if it's, if it's a chance to buy, that means you benefit. So when you buy the USDU, that means if it's all collaterals, is it worth more then as well?
No. So the point
What's
of
the incentive to buy it when it's under collateralized?
because you believe that you want to hold a stable token. So like let's say, in 2 years' time, now the USDU is, or let's say the Turkish lira is 5 times collateralized, right? You should move some of your crypto into the Turkish lira stablecoin or the Swiss franc stablecoin, because even if the underlying collateral drops 80%, it's still you still are entitled to a percentage of whatever the Turkish lira is trading at the moment.
Okay, guys,
there's a ceiling price.
This is not going to make sense no matter how much you explain it.
Yeah.
All right.
It's very.
Let's not go into the nitty-gritty details of it. It works. Sometimes it doesn't work.
I'm pretty sure that it works.
Yeah. But they figured out. We got smart guys trying to figure out that it works. But
Decentralized? Like,
decentralized.
Okay, so nobody can access that over collateralized.
Yeah. Is it decentralized or
decentralized? Yeah. So that's the cool thing about Polkadot. It takes care of the interoperability between chains. Yeah.
All right. So hopefully this has explained that tokens and crypto are revolutionizing governance, revolutionizing investing, revolutionizing asset management, revolutionizing changing the world, bringing people together. How do you even sell tickets? There's 1,000 things that we just discussed today that are all being revolutionized by a single technology called blockchain. By just a bunch of computers connected together, and you can program them in different ways. He just gave me 2 really good ideas for the real estate tokenization part, which will make investors much more likely to actually get involved in the process. But just think about that. One talk about one token and one meeting, and this many different ways of revolutionizing the economy comes out of it. That same process is going to happen to the entire world and the entire economy. The same way the internet came along and revolutionized everything. And it took smart guys who had ideas, and they're like, listen, trust me. I'm going to put a thing in your hand that's going to tell you every single answer in the world. And everybody was like, you're fucking nuts. You're crazy if you think I'll have something of what, a magical thing in my hand that I'll be able to like answer every single question, run the world from my fingertips. And today we're all using it like it's nothing. The next 10 years are the growth curve of this technology, and we're going to see these things come to fruition. We'll have these guys back again to discuss all this stuff. Thank you for joining. I really appreciate you guys' time.